So our next presenter is known for his iconic visual style, crafting hybrid fantasy worlds and mythical dreamscapes. I'm very excited about this one. He's a Grammy-nominated music video director, having worked with collaborators like BJORK and FKA Twigs. He's in late-stage development of his first feature film, Tiger Girl, which has received support from organizations like Film Independent and Sundance Institute. Please welcome Andrew Thomas Huang.
Hi, thanks for having me. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me today. I'm going to talk about creating hybrid fantasy worlds, and I'm going to do it by going into depth on 3 music videos that I've made in the past. I'm just going to start my slide here. So yeah, I've been directing music videos for about 15 years. I started by going to art school. I studied drawing and painting. I wasn't planning on directing. I did a lot of visual effects kind of experimentation when I was in college, and I thought I would go into work at a visual effects house. I also did a little bit of production design on student films and just helped out near the film school at USC just to get my feet wet. But my strength was just, again, drawing and painting and building things. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I graduated, but I ended up making a short film in college on my own. And that kind of kickstarted my career when I put it on YouTube. It went viral, and that caught the attention of production companies and agencies. And when I was a kid, I was a big fan of directors like Chris Cunningham and Spike Jonze, and who got their start doing music videos. So I thought I would start there directing, because I was just a music fan, and I felt like doing music videos was the equivalent of like doing short films. And I thought I would use my drawing and painting background as a segue into that world. And I think one of the big challenges, I think, for those of us who are visual people is how to take a visual idea and expand it out in time. And making a film, in short, is creating a beginning, middle, and end. And while that may sound really obvious, I think it's quite hard to do, especially if you're making something abstract or if you're making something that is technique driven. So in these examples that I'm going to give today, I'm going to talk about how I take a technique or an abstract idea and how I expand it out in time. This first example is a music video I did for Thom Yorke and his solo project, Atoms for Peace. The song was called Before Your Very Eyes. This was in 2013. And for those of you who are familiar with Thom Yorke, he's the lead singer of Radiohead. He's kind of an alt-rock king, and someone that I've admired for a long time as a teenager. And when he approached me with this song, which was really percussive and it was very textural. And when you get a music video track, I think the first thing you have to do is just absorb it and think about, what is the story that's being told with this song? What is this song about? What does it sensorially feel like? And I think it's really important to let your mind free associate. And it's through this process that you end up coming up with an idea for your video or for your film. And this is the most critical stage of any kind of creative process. And I think we live in a mood board culture where, with Pinterest and creating pitches and decks where you just throw together images you like, which I think is important. But I think sometimes we fall too reliant on that, and we end up sometimes copying things too closely. And I think that it's really important, when you're in your ideation phase, that you really be sensitive to the things in your life or things that you can do with your own hand and your own eye that can inform a work. For example, when Thom first gave me this song, I was thinking a lot about Thom as a figure himself, as someone who is very concerned about climate change and apocalypse, and his songs always have a kind of a depressing and I think a concerned outlook on where we're going as a society. There's always a political angle to his work. And he was here in LA, you know, surfing and writing and music and thinking a lot about LA as a desert landscape and as a place that, you know, as sunny as it is, can feel apocalyptic at times. And so I had this idea that I would portray Thom as like a singing statue sunken in the earth. And I started doing these drawings on pen, just ballpoint pen on a notepad, where he's kind of like a fallen god, kind of like a stone king in this sandy kind of topographic moving landscape. And I came up with this both from the sound of the song, and also the song made me think a lot of this poem called Ozymandias that I read in 8th grade. Again, about a sunken statue, kind of from a lost city, kind of extolling its power and its virtues, but it was really this crumbling statue in the sand. And so I thought I would literalize that and show him as this figure. And again, I needed to give this video a beginning, middle, and end. So I thought maybe first we could introduce Thom in pieces and then show him assembled, and then show a city kind of sinking into the earth around him, or maybe rising up and then sinking, you know. So I kind of, and then like end with him, what happens when these things go underground, and then I end with the video by showing him under the earth. And so you know, I began thinking of like what Thom would look like in this world and designing what the statue looks like. And I think sometimes when you're doing a music video, especially if it involves a solo artist, you can think of music video more like portraiture. I do think that if you're working with artists with strong identities, it's important to think about how they present, what character are they in this story. And so these are initial ZBrush sculpts that I did and collaged it with some rocky textures to make it, to design how his face kind of breaks apart. And this was a first test that we did. I worked with a team in London. It was a bunch of young VFX artists, recent graduates, and we all kind of banded together. And we did this in Maya, actually, before any of us knew Houdini, which would have been a better software, to be honest, to do this kind of abstract work. But we shot basically Thom using a low frame rate. We shot him at 12 frames per second so that we got this kind of jerky stop motion look, and then tracked his face using synthesize. And really we're using my ballpoint pen sketches as inspiration for the quality of movement and the kind of dripping texture of this topography. And I also, you know, we also, in order to sometimes talk and to do this work, we also have to develop our own vocabulary to talk about it. Like we ended up calling these things pancakes because we had to create these rippling textures that rippled out and then wrap them over like CG topography that we sculpted, or maybe even real topography that we sculpted in physical materials and then scan them using photogrammetry. So I'm going to quickly show a making of video to explain our process a bit more. So you can see we shot everything on a tabletop against blue screen. And I did this because it's really important to me to have a physical stage, physical set to base our lighting and our textures and our world around. I believe very much in hybrid approaches to filmmaking, because if we did this all in CG, it really just would have felt one note. And I like to keep people guessing on how we did it. I always think that physical approaches to filmmaking always pays off in a really rich way when you combine it with CG. These are just some examples of the object tracking we did on Thom's face. And these models we sculpted out of styrofoam and plaster, and designed it a lot after Death Valley, Zabriskie Point specifically, the land formations there. And we intentionally use stop motion approaches to evoke Ray Harryhausen films and some of the stop motion films that Tom grew up with in the 60s. So I think, when I work with musicians, I also try and be sensitive to the influences that they grew up with, things that they're drawing from in their music making. Each one of these files actually took about 3 hours to open because we designed our own coded workflow for these shaking topographies. So again, this was before we knew how to use Houdini. It was very painful, but we did it as a team. So that's the first example of taking an abstract idea of moving lines and topography and creating a story around it and giving it a beginning, middle, and end, where it starts with a portrait of an artist and becomes a landscape, and then we dive under that landscape and kind of conclude by showing us what's underneath that landscape. And so I think that's just one project. I also have done a lot of work with Icelandic artist BJORK. And again, every project I've done with her, it always involves a lot of conversation about what is the world we're building, what is the world behind the music, what are the ideas behind her music. And so this project was called The Gate. This is actually the last collaboration I did with her back in 2017, 18. This project, Björk told me that the song she wrote was about two lovers passing a light between their chests, as a kind of almost like a ritual of love between these two characters. And I think before this album, Björk was, she wrote a heartbreak album. And so she wanted to make this song to be like a transition point between albums, where this was much more hopeful and future facing. And it was kind of this idea of like, how can we construct a better world if we, through these ideas of Vedic spiritualism, and can there be a transcendent love that's like a higher love than just romantic? And so I did these 3D renders here of these avatars of Björk, imagining her almost as this futuristic being, and her doppelganger kind of passing this prism of light. And we talked a lot about light as a abstract kind of physical property that would inform the whole language of this film. And we were kind of inspired by things like seraphim wings. It's called hop vibration. It's like this mathematical kind of shape where we have spiraling lines that kind of form these almost like hypercubes, or these kind of ever-changing mathematical shapes. And I think it was this idea of like, how can we construct a future universe that's bigger and better than we could imagine in this dimension? And so I started taking these ideas and using it to create designs for what this prism could look like. And that's what you see here, these kind of prism designs. And it was these shapes and that became the language of the video. And I was trying to design the avatar that she is in love with. And we were doing this in tandem with Gucci, who were sponsoring the film. So the creative director, Alessandra Michele, was doing these designs of the costume, which you see, I took the shapes that he was working with, collaged them, and then kind of combined it with my own drawings to figure out what this avatar could look like. And these are just different mask designs for the avatar. What did its head look like, and how do I kind of make it look like a drone? I think we wanted to create something that felt both ancient and futuristic and spiritual at the same time. And I think it's also nice to, again, set the scene for a video. What is this world? What's the logic of it? And so we also opened the film with this kind of book cover of Björk in this kind of post-apocalyptic Anthropocene world where everything's kind of dried out, and but at the same time, maybe humanity's found a way to survive, and maybe there is hope for the future. And so this is just concept art I did for that opening. Again, I'm going to show you a video breakdown of how we did this project. So we shot this whole project on a stage with an LED rig to mimic all the lighting around her. That would be the CG world. We decided to shoot her against black because the whole universe was in this black void. Transformed into oh, whoops, I'm sorry. My healed chest and we used an optical motion capture system to capture our avatar dancer here. And from his performance, we got so many different options, a whole library of behaviors that we could apply to this avatar. And in order to do this project, we had to do a lot of pre-visualization, mostly in Maya with rough geometry, because the whole video is one seamless shot. And these are all the designs for the music. Splattered light beams into prisms. So if I were to summarize this video, it really is, just to summarize this video, like the theme of the video is light, and that is the kind of language of the video. And we start first with these two lovers, we just start the scene with them facing each other, and then it kind of breaks out where they become this ballet of avatars in the middle of the film. And then as she kind of fractures out, she comes back together to form herself, and we end with her making love to this avatar, and they're inside the prism. So, I think that that's a way to kind of create, again, a beginning, middle, and end out of something that would be rather abstract otherwise. So I think that every kind of, I think when you start to make a video, you should always think about, what is the material of this world? What are what's the color palette? And I think from there, you can kind of think about the image that you want to start the video out, and kind of continue to grow and evolve it. Or maybe even start with the image you want to end with and think subtractively, how can I get there to that resulting image in a beginning, middle, and end? And I'm going to talk about this last project I did. This is my video for FKA Twigs. The song is Cellophane. This song was particularly challenging, again, to create a project that interwove so many different things. Particularly, Twigs was learning to do pole dancing. And so I wanted to feature her performance heavily doing that work, and also interweave her personal narrative. She wrote this song when after she had gotten out of a romantic relationship with Robert Pattinson, and she also suffered some health problems. And I think just it was a traumatizing year of recovery. And after, I think what was kind of an explosion of fame for her back in between 2013 and 2015. And then how do I kind of take these two things and interweave them into a visual symbolic language? And so again, I turned to drawing. That's just what I do best. And, you know, if you don't draw, I think collaging or doing your own photography or your own writing, I think whatever you can do with very limited tools is always important work to begin finding your idea. And so she just told me her personal story and what she wanted to do with pole dancing. And so I kind of thought of her as maybe she's dancing and she's tethered to this being, or this kind of symbolic representation of who she always wanted to be. Because the song to me is very much about trying to be everything to everyone and failing and being human. And so I had this idea that maybe the pole is the center of this world, and she tries to climb upward to reach this kind of perfection up here. And you know, but in the middle here is kind of the mortal world, you know, where she performed for this invisible audience. She strives upwards to achieve this form of perfection. And when she realizes that this creature above is her, she falls back down and ends up in this kind of underworld. And so I think I show this drawing because this to me is kind of like, it's a map of the entire universe of this story. And I think you can kind of, for those who don't write and are visual, I think you can kind of map out or kind of where's Waldo your way into your story through just drawing it out on a 2D plane and saying, okay, how do I want this thing to evolve and where do I want it to go? And from here, once I kind of nailed down the story, I began doing more detailed concept art for the pitch or the treatment of the video. And I also do this work so that we can raise money for the project. Many music videos are funded through record labels who have the capital to finance videos. But often I find myself working with artists where we have to come up with the idea first and raise money for it like you would a feature film. So I did this by photographing Twigs in the rehearsal studio and painting and collaging things, you know, imagery to create this image in my head of what how I want her to ascend up this pole and what this robotic kind of avatar flying above her might look like, and what is this world that she's in. You know, I know that I want it to be made out of something angelic and heavenly. And this is just another image I made to convey that idea. And from here on out, I start working with a team. This is a production design sketch. My production designer was Fiona Crombie. She did The Favorite with Yorgos Lanthimos and most recently Cruella, the Disney movie. And she's just brilliant and did this hand drawing of what a 360 stage might look like. I think because Twigs is pole dancing, I felt very much like a lot of pole dancing has been filmed from a distance on long lenses and it looks very flat. And I'm like, why would you shoot pole dancers like that if you can really capture the rotation of them and make this video feel spiraling? Then, you know, let's let the 360 rotation be the language of the video. So it was a lot of work to build this 360 stage, and drapery is actually, and doing curtain work is actually very expensive. So we actually had to, we had to shoot this, you know, really cleverly because it was a very ambitious idea. And these are some sketches I started doing of what this creature could look like. And me and Twigs's stylist, Matthew, we kind of decided that maybe like jade and copper and amber would be a really nice palette for this video. And I had this idea that she, you know, this is like a Twigs kind of, again, avatar, angel, sphinx. And I wanted it to feel like a truly futuristic digital creature. Yeah, I just did these drawings in Photoshop. and then began kind of doing 3D experimentation as well, doing a photogrammetry scan of her face and trying out these different shaders in Maya and ZBrush. I'm also very meticulous about storyboarding. I really believe that movies are made in planning. I think that spontaneous filmmaking is great, but I think if you create a plan, it actually sets you free even more. I think that some of the most spontaneous work that you can do often is the result of very meticulous planning. Like we made some really exciting discoveries in this video had we not done this storyboarding. So I actually drew these myself, thinking about telling the story of her arriving out of this curtain, performing for this invisible audience. And you can see kind of how these translate pretty one-to-one with what we shot. I wanted there to be a mirrored floor so that we could just keep this whole thing looking glossy, and I wanted her heels to sound like knives. I even, pre-visualized the once I did the storyboards, I did sound design roughly with sounds I could find on the internet to just capture that sense of echoing hardness. Because the idea is that she comes out looking really hard and powerful, and then we end with the video her looking very soft and vulnerable. And I think that's the emotional journey I wanted to carve. This is the ending where she's in this clay world underground, and you can see how it kind of translates with what we actually shot. And then from storyboarding, I go into doing previs in Maya, roughly with rough models. This was just a pre-visualization of what some of the camera moves we could attempt to achieve and how those camera moves reveal this creature at the top of the pole. And I also sometimes do previs with actual rehearsal footage. So this is an example of taking that previs and applying it to actual performance tests. So I did that all with my iPhone and After Effects, and it becomes very helpful. I really think it's important for those of us who work digitally and are trying to tell a story that involves emotions. I think that it's important to involve and consider how performance interweaves with your work. And if you can try and do rehearsals and interweave it with your work, I think it's really helpful. These are actual images from our actual shoot. We actually shot in Kyiv in the Ukraine, and worked with a really fantastic crew there. It's been really sad to see what's happening there and knowing just how many talented artists and film crew live out there. And there's been so much music video and production work done out there the past few years, and we really owe it to them to support them, because it's just Kyiv is such a haven for creative people. And but we shot there, and this is just some of our behind the scenes footage. Often what I like to do once we've shot something is I like to take stills of the footage and draw over them so that our effects team know what to do, what's supposed to be there, because I think when you're working with a large crew, drawing or collaging images just helps visually communicate with everyone very quickly what needs to happen. These are some images of concept art I did when she steps into the Sphinx's face. And these are some draw overs of when I'm working with a CG artist, I like to kind of have other references and do draw over notes so that we can communicate with each other of how to design, make the design work. I'm going to end by showing making a video of this, and then we'll do a Q&A.
Didn't I do it for you? Why don't I do it for you? Why won't you do it for me? When all I do is for you. They wanna see us alone. They wanna see us apart. They wanna see us alone. They wanna see us apart. And I just want to feel your love. And I don't want to have to share our love. I try, but I get overwhelmed when you're gone. I have no one to tell. And I just want to feel you're there. And I don't want to have to share our love. I try, but I get overwhelmed, all wrapped in cellophane. The feelings that we had. Didn't I do it for you? Why don't I do it for you? Why won't you do it for me? When all I do is for you. And didn't I do it for you? Why won't I do it for you? Why won't you do it for me? When all I do is for you. But I just want to feel you there. And I don't want to have to share our love. I try, but I get overwhelmed when you're gone. I have no one to tell. They're waiting, they're watching.
Thank you very much.
Wow. I think we might all just need a minute to absorb everything that we just saw. That was really, really stunning, very beautiful work. I'm trying to figure out where to start because I have so many questions for you. But you talked a little bit about the influences of your collaborators and interpreting their world and really understanding them. So as a creative, where do you find your balance in bringing, your creativity to it versus their creativity and having that sort of back and forth? What are some of the unique challenges that come with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think collaboration is a lot like improv. The rule of improv is you say yes, and then you add to what you're given. And so I think my contribution is it's passing a ball back and forth, and it's about listening and then kind of free associating my own history and my own kind of way of operating, my tools and my my preferences and my opinions and my, I think that drawing for me has been really useful as a way of manifesting both my ideas and their ideas, and kind of putting it into an image for us to make this thing real, So I think, collaboration is inherently sticky. It's not easy. But I think with the right fit, I think so much of collaboration is about chemistry and sharing same sensibilities and or not actually, you know. I think you have to just be really fluid and open when people approach you and take what's thrown at you and run with it.
So we're going to stick on the theme of collaboration because we've got some Q&As coming up from the audience that touch upon that as well. How integrated are your ideas with a technical director to support them? Is it critical that creatives find a technical director to achieve these types of experiences or not?
I think it's maybe a question of ambition, you know. There's a lot of stories and videos you can make without something so technically focused, but if that is if the technique is the concept, and if you don't know how to achieve it, I think you should always involve a collaborator, because the whole point of directing is to not be good at everything. You can't, the directing by definition is not being good at something, so you find someone who's better at it than you are to collaborate with. This is a collaborative medium, so yeah, for sure. If you can find someone who can technically take your idea and amplify it in a way that's better than you could have imagined it, then absolutely.
Amazing. So we've got a question here from Liam, but for some praise. Your work is a massive inspiration to him and his friends, and it was really cool to watch this talk. He wants to know how to ask, how do you see your work evolving? A lot of your work seems to have a deep relationship with nature. Do you take a lot of inspiration from nature or from a particular field?
Yeah, I love nature, and I just went on a walk before this talk. I think like I grew up in Southern California near the ocean, and it's really important to me to get out away from the computer. As far as where my work's evolving, I've been working on a movie for like 5 years. I am learning how hard it is to make movies, how to, you know, and the pandemic has made it harder. But I have a financing offer. We're gearing up to shoot this year. I'm trying to take everything I've learned from doing music videos and putting it into this story that's very personal to me. So these things take time, but you know, I will definitely want to continue doing videos, and you know, there's so much to do. So I just directed my first episode of TV this year. I'm excited to just, broaden and do more narrative stuff and try things I haven't done yet.
That's very cool. So the movie is Tiger Girl, correct?
Yes.
Great. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because this one is personal for you, and talk to us about the process of working through something that's a feature film length as opposed to collaborating with other artists on their work.
Yeah. The movie is called Tiger Girl. It's about a Chinatown girl in the 1960s who's haunted by a tiger in her attic. It's something that's inspired by my family's story and my story, and it's got fantasy in it. And, you know, I've learned that writing requires so much just emotional stamina and time. It requires saying no to other projects. It's required me to slow down and not do as many videos as I normally do. And it's also required a community shift, because I find that like in entertainment, there's vectors of communities. There's the music video commercial community, there's film, there's TV, there's more, you know, like I think it's hard to find the people that want to do what you want to do. And so I think so much of what's taken me time is just to find new people who want to slow down and really talk about the things that interest me now. And so I think, narrative filmmaking is a totally different challenge and a different, it's a whole different thing. So I feel like I'm constantly learning and humbled how much there is to learn.
Are there any artists that you would like to work with but haven't worked with yet?
So many. Hard to say one, because there's this, you know, I'm continuing to be such a music fan, and there's so much out there. But I think for me, it has nothing to do with how big the artist is or how many fans they have. I think it's just like whether I resonate, but yeah, there's too many to name, but short answer is I'm always keeping track of what's out there, and yeah, I have an ongoing list.
It's a difficult question. And I imagine if you were to answer it, the answer would probably change every single time you got asked that.
It changes. And also even people that I love, whose music I love, they may not be good collaborate. They may not be a good fit. There's many artists that I adore, but I just don't think maybe it would be the right connection, because I also think that so much of making the right collaboration involves how that artist operates on an economic level. You know, often big artists have record labels that have their timelines and they move very quickly. So it's hard to really slow down and talk to people and get meaningful work made. I really believe time is our greatest asset. And I think artists who want to take the time to really make meaningful work is what I really enjoy.
I think it's a really good point about understanding when to say no to something, because I think we get caught in this space of like wanting to say yes to all of the opportunities and not necessarily evaluating, like, am I the right fit for this project? Should I really be involved? Am I the right collaborator? I think those questions are really important as well. You just mentioned time being a precious asset. How long on average does it take you to produce with these videos? Are we talking lengthy periods of time? Because it seems like you're doing so much planning and so much depth of work there.
That's a good question. Cellophane, we started talking about in June of 2018. We shot it in December of that year. So it took about 6 months to raise the money. Then we delivered it in April. And so it took another 4 months to finish it. So that took like, 9 months, like it took a long, 10 months. It took a long time. The BJORK video was similar. It took about 6 months to raise the money and another 4 to 6 months to finish. So my videos take a long time. A lot of videos, sometimes you only have 2 weeks to do them, if that. I think I'm slow. So I wish I could work faster, but that stuff just takes a while.
I don't know if it's a slow thing. I think you're doing so much. It's like, how are you doing so much in such a short period of time? I'm wondering about, is there something that you're doing now that you want to stop doing, that you don't want to do anymore?
I hate to say it, but I think just as much as I enjoy doing CG work, or I use CG work as a tool to communicate my ideas, I think getting stuck doing tutorials and learning new software, it just takes the place of coming up with new ideas that could be expanded into bigger things. So I'm trying to do less of the technical stuff and trying to do more of just writing and thinking and coming up with new stories and ideas, because the technology always shifts, but your eye and your ideas don't. So I think I'm trying to invest in things that I know will support me in the long run and grow into things, become a garden of ideas that I can grow, and maybe less of the technical work.
And it sounds like that's probably a good place for collaboration then, and where you'd want to bring in someone like a technical director and has that, someone who has that skill.
Precisely, definitely.
That's great. I'm going to leave you with a weird question. Is there a question that you wish people would ask you that people aren't asking you?
I think I just like knowing, or I think conversationally, I always like to know what people are into or what they're watching or what they're reading or thinking about. So it's not necessarily that I want to be asked that. I just like talking with people about what's in the ether, what are we, but no, not in particular. I don't know. I also just enjoy getting deep into the work. So there's nothing in particular I usually prefer people ask me.
Okay, so we're going to take that as a prompt for the chat and say, what are you watching? What are you guys watching? Let's build a nice little list for Andrew, and we're going to get Andrew to start it off. What are you watching, Andrew?
I'm watching Station 11. I'm playing
Right,
Zelda
that's a good
Breath of
one.
the Wild. yeah, I'm playing Zelda Breath of the Wild because we've had a Switch for a while and I haven't like started. So I'm watching. I'm also just trying to catch up on a lot of anime that I was around but didn't sit down and really watch. So like I just watched the Evangelion movie after the series. So yeah, I'm just trying to like catch up on my anime library because I didn't really watch a lot as a kid. So I'm enjoying it as an adult.
And it's probably a good source of inspiration as well.
Definitely.
Amazing.
Definitely.
All right, awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrew, for this inspirational, mind-blowing presentation. I'm sure we're all going to be thinking about it for a while. And thank you all for your questions for Andrew as well.